BRICS, if you think back to what I said in my lecture, the BRICS are a mixed group. Some of them would count as great powers, and some of them would count as regional powers. And so South Africa is clearly a regional power. Brazil, I think, is still a regional power. India is, it's either the biggest regional power or the smallest great power, I'm not quite sure. China is clearly a great power. So they're a mixed group of the kind of countries that my scenario suggests will have more, freedom is not quite the right word, but more scope to conduct their own diplomacy both in their own regions and also elsewhere. I think that the diplomatic initiative of Brazil and Turkey regarding the nuclear proliferation problems in Iran is a very good example of the sort of thing that we'll see a lot more of. But we will also see a lot more of regional politics, because if there are no superpowers, nobody is going to be pretending to look after regions. They will have to look after themselves. And if IR tradition tells us anything, it's that the major powers in the region will play the major role in that, for better or for worse.
I see.
As you may know from the Copenhagen School literature, the Copenhagen School does not think it's a good idea to securitize things if you don't have to. But the climate change issue has been a very interesting one in that the term environmental security has been used quite a lot, but it hasn't actually succeeded in becoming the lead on anybody's agenda. So it is still being dealt with, in a sense, as normal politics. The nature of the issues, particularly, let's just talk about the global warming issue. The problem with this is that, first of all, it seems to be a kind of indirect threat, and it's more psychologically, it's more difficult to securitize indirect threats of that sort than it is threats from other people. I don't know why that is, but it seems easier to securitize threats coming from other people than from, if you like, nature. So there's a particular problem about this, which is compounded by the fact that the exact nature of the threat is not very easy to pin down. So you don't know when the threat is going to happen, and you don't know what form it's going to take, or how serious it's going to be. And there's a lot of argument which tends to sap the strength of a securitization, because there's so much contestation about the issues. To my mind, that suggests that probably the environmental security issue will stay in something like the mode that it's in until there is some big signifying disaster, like, I mean, to take the obvious example, like the Titanic. So you need a big catastrophe to happen in order for the rules to change, and for mindsets to change. The interesting question then is, how big a disaster? New Orleans and Catarina was not big enough, even though it was the US. I'm fascinated to watch the discourses on Bangladesh, right, which every time there's a big tidal surge, a typhoon in Bangladesh, you get the same kind of media reporting. Bangladesh has had another flood, we need to put in some emergency aid and a bit of medium-term reconstruction, that's it. There's kind of no sense that Bangladesh is actually becoming uninhabitable and that 40 million people are going to have to find somewhere else to live during the next decades, and that India is building a fence all around Bangladesh because it doesn't want to be the place where those people go. Bangladesh isn't big enough yet either. So what's the Titanic moment? I don't know, but we're not going to see a securitization until we get one. Whether it's in climate change or whether it's you wake up one morning and know that some large space rock is heading for the planet at some measurable date, that will get things moving. But before that, much more difficult. That's not really a very fair question because I don't know enough about the conditions in Brazil to give you a specific answer to that. My general advice to students of all sorts is that they should study what they're interested in. At the stage of life that students are mostly in is the last stage of life where you really get to do what you want. So I think the best thing you can do is to follow what interests you, learn as much about it as you can, and then find a way of earning a living from that. But don't start with, I need to earn a living. Start with, I'm interested in this, and go with that, and take the risk. So international relations can take you in many different directions. It can take you into academia, it can take you into journalism, it can take you into diplomacy and politics, all sorts of things. So, as I say, go with what interests you and let the rest develop from that.